6 years ago, Bill Gates proposed a question in his TED Talk.
In fact, if there's one positive thing that can come out of the Ebola epidemic, it's that it can serve as an early warning, a wake-up call to get ready.
6 years later, in the height of another global health crisis, we can finally answer his question. Did we hear the wake-up call and respond appropriately this time, or are we still inadequately prepared? Let's look at the current COVID-19 virus outbreak. With experience and knowledge from the SARS outbreak in 2003, we should be prepared to tackle a similar respiratory disease. However, we are horribly unprepared. While the first case of the virus was detected in Wuhan in November 2019, the government didn't reveal this information until a month after to prevent public panic and to stabilize the economy. In fact, when Dr. Li Wenliang tried to warn us about the outbreak, he was punished as a rumor monger. Now let's look at the rest of the world. Knowing that 80,000 Chinese people had been harmed because of delay in governmental action, President Trump proceeds to downplay the magnitude of the outbreak, claiming it's just a Democrats' new hoax. Iran confidently proclaimed that the coronavirus wouldn't become a big problem, not knowing that in 2 weeks, senior officials and 17,000 civilians would take over headlines as confirmed cases because of lack of preemptive measures. After the SARS outbreak, mechanical ventilators proved crucial for tackling respiratory diseases. So in 2005, the US government pledged to purchase 740,000 mechanical ventilators in case of another outbreak. 15 years later, the US still has an aggregate of merely 62,000 ventilators, 10 times fewer than what is actually needed. A survey of 6,500 nurses on the front line across 48 states revealed that only 30% of nurses have access to sufficient personal protection equipment. During each major outbreak in human history, we regretted not preparing more as we paid a price through lives lost. Yet, in the emergence of a new pandemic, we still find ourselves in the same situation. I used to believe perhaps epidemics are just too unpredictable to contain. But in the past month I've spent in China, I witnessed the infinite capacity of people's creativity, efficiency, and innovation. Leishanshan Hospital rose from the ground in 10 short days. Volunteers compiled airline data to create simulations that model the spread of the disease to test the efficacy of different travel restrictions. Chinese scientists isolated and proactively shared the virus's genetic sequence online, enabling antibody tests. Now doctors around the world can test if someone has the virus even if no symptoms are showing. In Australia, 100 pop-up clinics were built with a $2.4 billion increase in medical budget. If we can do all of these amazing things during the crisis, if money, munificence, and technology are not problems, then why couldn't we take these measures earlier? It was never a problem of capability, but a matter of mindset. Because during a crisis, urgency drives us to act. But this sense of urgency fades away, ensuing the end of an epidemic. Let's dig deeper. Why is that the case? Well, 1, it is more hopeful to view an epidemic as a purely temporary situation. After the Spanish flu in 1918, media deliberately focused on positive pieces to boost public morale. This explains why one of the most popular songs at that time was "Happy Days Are Here Again," as if the virus left us permanently. Similarly, Chinese media uses 战役 to describe the fight against the coronavirus, as if it is an ephemeral battle. But as Peter Doherty states, it is a battle you never win, because countless viruses constantly go through mutations in their hosts, and it is a matter of time before a new mutation takes place that makes another one transmittable to humans. This isn't a single battle, it is continuous war. Believing in that creates constant urgency that we need for disease prevention, but we naturally reject it because what comes along is pessimism and fear. 2. Laura Spiney, a British science journalist researching the Spanish flu, poses that we have no incentive to look back at previous outbreaks. Because unlike wars or milestone political achievements, there are no victors, only the vanquished. There is always greater cost than gain in an epidemic, meaning to remember an outbreak is to relive pain. So of course, it is better to forget, but by forgetting the exigency of a deadly outbreak, we lose a powerful reminder urging us to act proactively. Lastly, we also live in a society that awards problem solvers, not preventers. Without a disease outbreak, pouring money into disease prevention may be seen as wasteful and thus electorally unpopular. So political capital is spent elsewhere, where money translates into votes. What does this mean? This means right now our mentality is stopping us from effectively tackling pandemics. Because since we reject outbreaks as a norm of human existence, we justify each outbreak as an accident by assigning blame to a subset of people. It is easy to blame the outbreak on people who consumed bats. It is easy for Trump to label the COVID-19 virus as the Chinese virus. It is easy to violently lash out at Asians in our communities. Exactly when the human race needs to mobilize against the outbreak, this mentality divides us. We do not lack good, proactive plans for disease control when medical experts and nonprofit organizations commit to tackling this issue. It's just when leaders can easily scapegoat responsibility, there is no reason to make tangible contributions. So we must start from the constituents. When everyone knows the facts, that this is not an accident, that this happened again because our leaders chose to ignore the science cautioning them that this would recur, that every outbreak is a global failure, then political tricks of scapegoating will not work. That is when we hold our leaders accountable to put money into emergency medical units, into international disease surveillance, and into vaccine development and distribution. As Dr. Peter Hotez states,
the bottom line is, had we had those investments early on to carry this all the way through clinical trials years ago, we could have had a vaccine ready to go.
That is when we can actually reduce the number of cases and deaths of this outbreak and many more to follow. It all starts with rationally accepting the science behind virus outbreaks. So, in this difficult time, please show love and support to everyone around you and call out leaders who irrationally feel hate. Please cooperate with health officials, and please, even when the coronavirus seems like a distant memory, remember that saving lives from the next epidemic starts now. If we can do all of these things, then we finally heard the wake-up call in 2020.